Hi, everyone. I'm Kyanna.
I'm Neycha.
And you're listening to the Talk Carby to Me podcast.
It's good to be back recording. I'm Anthony, as usual, as always, joined by Sandra. And today we have two very special guests, two good friends of ours. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you guys do?
Okay. So I'm Neycha.
I'm Kyanna.
And we are Holistic Healing Collective. And we are a mental health agency. So here in Massachusetts, I know that you guys are more little down south in North Carolina. So we focus on, mental health, but overall the whole body. So people see us for different reasons. Someone might come to see me for more traditional psychotherapy, and then Kyanna deals with more of the alternative style. So
life coaching, wellness coaching, more of the holistic ways to create a self-care routine for yourself, basically. So I'm working more on present and future goals, where Neycha will deal with people that want to work with their trauma history. So I will work with more people that want to, maybe you've had therapy already and you've done it for years and you're looking to create a new kind of routine or add a routine for your mental health or self-care routine. So sometimes I will meet people to teach them how to do meditation, what that looks like, the different forms, how to incorporate gentle yoga, restorative yoga practices in their routine so that they're getting some movement, how movement and mental health are important. So that's more along the lines what I do. I talk about teas and adaptogens and different healthy ways to just incorporate additional things to help you with your mental health.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we work very closely together because not everyone needs the traditional therapy, or some people might need it for a little bit because they're focusing on something going on in their life or some kind of trauma they're wanting to deal with. But then they're kind of done with me, and then they can go to Kyanna to really work on that. So this isn't like you come to us and you're stuck with us forever. That's not the point. We want to see you progress, and we also are paying attention to the whole body, because, and that is why we're also on the podcast, because we're going to talk about the importance of physical health as well, not just mental health.
I love it.
Yeah, those two things often do go hand in hand. So love it. Love what you guys do, what you bring to the table. So I think right off the bat, so I think we see the word holistic thrown around a lot in the media. You see it on social media, advertising, marketing. Like, what is that like? What does that mean? So obviously we have fitness. Oh, you fitness and exercise, and there's 100 different things you do. But when you look at a holistic approach, I think was the way that it's commonly used. What does that really entail for someone?
So it entails the mind, body, and the spirit. So those three components are what should be when you hear holistic. That's what we're talking about. So maybe someone is having some mental health issues, but it might be acute mental health issues, right? So maybe someone's going through a divorce, and so you're experiencing depression around that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need long-term therapy. So you might need some therapy, and then you want to transition into learning some coping skills, how is it showing up in your body. Some people that have long-term stress, they have chronic back pain, or they have chronic shoulder pain, hip pain. So all of those things are, stress is kind of stored in your body, and your body keeps the score of what's going on with you. So holistic means, okay, let's start, how are you eating? How are you sleeping? Because those things have to be looked at before you can even tackle what's going on in your head. Let's talk about how you're eating, how you're sleeping, because if you're not sleeping well, your body, when you sleep, that's when your rest and digestion, your body repairs itself. So if you're telling me you're only getting 3 hours of sleep, I'm going to tell you we need to work on that first. Yeah. How are you eating? What do you eat? Oh, I eat Snickers bars all day. No.
Yeah.
So you're gonna, your energy's gonna be depleted. It's gonna affect your mood. So all of it plays a role in how you're showing up mentally and physically. So you have to look at all of those components.
Yeah. So we are a private practice. So we cut it, and it's our practice. So we get to decide how we want to, serve our clients. We don't really adhere to a what the insurances want. Again, it depends on everybody, what they can do. Big agencies, they'll have things that have to be done, that things have to be checked off. And there's numerous reasons, and you might need that. So that just, it's what you need, but it's going to be very like more rigid. So, we're more open to having a conversation that we need to talk about like your vagus nerve. What is your vagus nerve? Like, how does that impact your body, or how is that impacting what you're going through? So that's like the beauty of, especially like private practices, is we kind of make up our own like rules, and there's so many of us that the client really gets to decide what's a good fit, because we might not be a good fit for everybody, and that's fine. There's plenty of other places that you can go to. So it's really about having a relationship with your therapist or your mental wellness coach. You need to have that. You need to be comfortable, and you want to have that good relationship.
I love that you guys touch on like the whole like lifestyle of a person. And I'll share with you guys. I used to have, well, I still have, it's not like you ever really get rid of it. I had like clinical depression and anxiety too. I was like medicated for a number of years. And I always tell everyone, like, if my sleep, if my food, and my exercise, if one of those three pieces is off, like I can tell my mood already starting to shift, right? Like for me, like those three pieces are just so key. And then of course my relationships in my life are important to me too. And that has to be stable as well. But yeah, sleep and food are like a huge one for me, like huge.
Yeah, it's huge for everybody. I work with a lot of teenagers too, so I just feel like they don't understand the importance of, like, they're like high energy in the morning, but by afternoon they're depleted and they can't focus, and because they haven't been eating properly or drinking water throughout the day. So those are things that I make it a point to try to teach them younger, because no one told me that when I was younger, right? So I think if you don't know, you don't know. So trying to incorporate just small changes. So like if they come to me for a snack, I'm like, I have an apple here for you, or a banana, and they're like, oh, like, do you have something else? But then they'll take it because this is what you have, So it's like just introducing them to better ways, or anyone, like you have to start at the very base level. If that's not stable, the rest of you is going to be unstable, for sure. There's your people, the people you're around, the relationships that you have. If you're constantly around negativity, that's going to impact, that's part of your spirit. So like, you're listening to this negativity all the time and it's around you, it's going to impact you. So it's really looking at everything, even your finances. Like if your like it's a whole big wheel. Like if you look at the wheel of like finances, career, family, all of these things play a part in how we show up. So
true.
I feel so seen right now. So it's funny. It's a couple examples that you meant. So I started out my week with a bang, right? So Sunday night, I don't know what happened, but I went to bed. I set up myself for like 8 hours of sleep, which is rare for me. I'm usually more of like a 5 to 6.5 kind of guy. As much as I try, usually that's kind of where it falls. And, you got the NBA playoffs and NHL playoffs. So unfortunately I have drama at like 1 a.m. to pay attention to. So, I got such a good night's sleep on Sunday that on Monday, there was nothing that could happen. Like the meteor could have hit the earth and it would have been fine. Like it would have, like the meteor would have come in and there would have been like violins and like playing and like little birds everywhere. Everyone was happy. Like the coffee tasted better. The air smelled cleaner. It was a phenomenal day. And I was super productive for the entire day, which is rare for me.
It's big.
Yeah. Cause usually I peter out like, 4 o'clock, you're not getting much out of me after 4 o'clock. Depending on what we're doing or what we're trying to attempt, because I've already worked out. I've seen people. I'm an introvert, so I've seen clients, and not the negative connotation of this, but they've kind of drained me of my energy. And yeah, so, and you mentioned like the Snickers thing. If you're eating Snickers bars all day during the lockdown, I didn't work for 7 months. Every single day I had a Snickers bar without fail.
It's like you're a psychic.
Yeah, without fail, every single day. It was. We woke up, we had some coffee, stared out the window randomly.
It's going to give you that energy, but then you're like, later on, you're like, oh man, I'm tired, like you're tired because it gives you that rush, that sugar rush, and that satisfaction.
And it's tastier.
It is. It's good.
Better than an apple.
Yeah.
So
and
true.
speaking of marketing, how we started this whole thing, like I was there, and obviously I think everyone became a little psychotic after a few months of that. But I would be sitting there, and like my girlfriend at the time, she's working in her office, so I'm really just home alone. And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, I am hungry. Why would I wait? And like, Snickers is right. That's a great slogan. I would just eat the Snickers bar. Like, I would just be all about it.
It's delicious.
The Snickers marketing got you.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
So I wanted to bring us all together, right? Because obviously, so me and Sandra are more in the nutrition and fitness field, and we interact with people, and trainers accidentally become people's therapists. Not in the sense of like we're practicing therapy and we really have no concept, but we're that person that we're there and we're a sounding board, and people just unload on us sometimes.
Yep.
So we end up being that person, and some of the things we might have experiences with it, and we talk about it, but we've run into it a lot where we have clients that are dealing with a mental health issue, and they're trying to change their life, whether like you alluded to earlier, where you're coming through a divorce or a tough time, and the next step to get out of the tough time or to get the lights to come back on was to start exercising. So you come to us, you need some kind of structure. And as you kind of get to know that person, you can kind of see and kind of uncover a lot of that damage that they're kind of dealing with. And I think I'm a huge believer in fitness as therapy, but I'm also not naive enough to fully believe that, because I myself have dealt with trauma in my past that I haven't really cleaned up until recently. And you can kind of see how it overlays and intertwines with everything that we were talking about with the holistic approach. So like fitness for me is easy. It's bread and butter. It's kind of in my DNA at this point. So is nutrition and stuff like that. But I still run into these things, even though commonly in society, or maybe not society, but maybe like if you look at fitness and exercise, it's like, oh, this is the thing that makes you happy. But for a lot of cases, like I've, been a trainer for 7 and 8 years, and I've probably been happy for like 2 of those years. So it's definitely something that I wanted to bring together to kind of showcase and kind of talk about like what both can do. One thing that kind of led me on this path is we've been talking a lot about medicine. I think we had the diabetes conversation and the illness and obesity, and kind of every single time you talk about any of these major issues in the world today, there's some element of mental health that always creeps back in, as far as when we talked about, is obesity a choice, or is it a choice, or is it something that's chronic illness that you can't get away from, that's just destined to happen? When you look at, some of the things we've looked at, like the diabetic medication that people are now taking to use to lose weight, the shots and things like that, transitioning into eating disorders, things of that nature. And it kind of all goes back into, we have problems in the United States and we have different approaches to them. And one of the things that I found very interesting, there was a study done in Australia that took a look at the effect of exercise on people who suffer from depression and anxiety. And what they actually found was that exercise is actually more effective than counseling and the leading medications for the populations that they studied. So just usually studies, they take them with a grain of salt because they're very like closed and they're kind of almost like in a petri dish. But this study had 97 reviews. It had about 1,000 trials, and it had 120,000 participants. And in almost all of them, and a lot of them revolved around like if they suffer from depression or anxiety, and they looked at it and they were like, wow, this actually does work. So that's kind of what we wanted to kind of touch on. So we deal with that on our end, you guys, right? So it would be great to hear from you guys as far as like people that you've interacted with and how that's helped them, and kind of like why it helps put people in a better mental space for.
Yeah. So fitness is always going to make you feel better, right? You should really limit your fitness or what that looks like if you are injured, if you have some kind of restriction, right? So just having any kind of physical activity is good for you, regardless of who you are, regardless of what age. It's never going to be a bad thing, unless again you're injured or your doctor said no for whatever reason. It's some people are experiencing anxiety. Some people are experiencing depression. That does not mean that they have a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder or major depressive disorder. That, I think, especially like the younger crowd, they have like a few bad days and it's like, I have depression. You can have bad days. You can have a bad month, right? Like some people, if you want to lay down on bed all day and not do anything, sometimes that's what your body needs. That doesn't mean that you have a depression, or you have some kind of major depressive disorder, and that you need medication and that you need therapy. It's okay to have bad days. And we need anxiety for survival. Like if there's a bear coming at us, we need to do something. We need that. That is in our bodies. It is to keep us safe. And there's a reason why your anxiety is wherever it's at, right? It's it's active. And just because it's active doesn't mean you have anxiety. Fitness is absolutely fantastic for both of those things. But when it comes to someone having anxiety disorder, that it is impacting their life, it is changing things in their life because they can't get out of their home, or they can't get out of bed, or they've missed work, they've missed school, they're not feeding their children. Like when it is impacting your life, yes, saying to someone you need to put in a workout regimen is great, but then that is something that the person does need, a therapeutic approach as well. But it's okay to have anxiety and to have a little depressive moments.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people will, if they're saying, if they're having a life experience or a life crisis, divorce or whatever it is, they might even be thinking in that moment, oh, I need medication. And that might just be that little hump that they need to get over. It doesn't necessarily require medication, but it does require you to be actively like saying, okay, I need to like get up out of the house. I might need to get some fresh air. Because I feel like just even being outside, getting sunlight, all of that stuff will help you to feel better in those moments where, you're just having a moment or a few days or a bad month or whatever it is. In other cases, if you're chronically depressed for months, yeah, you may need to have a therapeutic approach in terms of therapy, and you might need to be on medication, for a short period of time. I don't feel like exercise is just the one answer for it. I feel like it's a tool in your toolbox for you to maintain your mental health and to help you to feel better, because it's going to naturally release endorphins in your body, dopamine, oxytocin, all those things that are those natural hormones in your body that help you to feel good, because you're going to feel those natural rushes. So yes, whether it be walking, yoga, Pilates, a really good fitness regimen, it doesn't matter. Just some type of movement, and even just spending some time outside is important as part of the toolbox. It might not be that's all that you need, though, for sure.
And it helps with your self-esteem. Like after, maybe getting to the workout, I definitely getting to the workout. That's obviously the toughest part. But once you're done with the workout, you don't regret it, right? Mm-hmm. You only regret it if you get injured and you're like, oh crap, I shouldn't have done that. But you feel better afterwards. You feel better about yourself. So that comes along with it. But it's something that everyone should do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All I can say is too, is like when I was like at the bottom of the bottom, like if someone would have told me like, oh, go work out and like all will be fine, that just would not have worked for me. Like, yeah. I mean, for me, even like just, getting out of the house was like a feat within itself, let alone like going to a gym that was like super intimidating for me at the time. Like that was definitely like not in the cards for me. I'm curious to hear from you guys, because everyone keeps saying like, oh, anxiety and depression is on the rise. Like we're seeing more and more of it. Do you see that a lot within your own clinic as well? Or do you guys like think that people are just overusing the terminology? I'm just curious.
Both.
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I feel so like I work with kids during the day. So I feel like I've seen a lot more anxiety and it's more social anxiety that I'm seeing. And I think COVID played a role in that for sure with kids, because when they started to have to come back in person in school, not only were they worried about getting sick, but like they were worried about just interacting with kids, and they're still experiencing a lot of that. So I think it's on the rise, but I think it is both, because there's so much access to information now that people diagnose themselves constantly when they just read something. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, that's me, I have that, so without having been to a professional at all, they're just speaking on something that they read, or you have a symptom and you're
Yeah.
Googling it. And so, oh, yep, yeah, I have that. So I definitely think it's both. It just depends on who you're talking to and what's going on. But I definitely think it's both.
Yeah. There's a lot of just even like apps that help you diagnose yourself, and, you know, TikTok, you know, and all that stuff. One of the things that I bring back to people, because I've had people tell me I have this really big diagnosis, and I'm like, who told you that? Well, I took a quiz.
Right.
I'm like, okay. And then like, well, it says this and this, like for example, like depression, like if you're having like sad days, and that's one of those symptoms that's like a stomach ache, right? You could be hungry, you can, you know, be dying, you could need to go to the bathroom, right? Like it's one of those symptoms. Like, yeah, there is a reason why we went to school for this. There's way more to it than just that one symptom.
And totally. There was a period in time where regular physicians, your family practitioners, were just give people, you know, the patient would go in and say, I'm depressed, but instead of referring them to a therapist, a clinical social worker, or someone doing the work, they're just, oh, okay, I'll give you the medication. And so they're, you know, I was seeing a lot of that in our prior, when we used to work for somewhere else, and you saw a lot of that, like the people had already been taking medications, but never seen a therapist, and it's, or a psychiatrist to prescribe that medication. They were getting it from their regular doctor. And it's like, but they're not trained and specifically to deal with mental health, you know? So it is overused, or people just, you know, gravitate towards medication without, you know, trying other things. Some people, some people do need medication, but you need to go to the proper people to channel that and kind of see like what are, you know, their steps before, like, okay, yep, you need a pill. So
it's crazy. It's for us in our previous job, if the client saw a doctor and a doctor was like, oh, you have depression, this is your medication, there was very little we can do to change that person's mind to that, because we're not a medical doctor, like, you know, so they're always going to trump us, even though they're there for seeing you for a few minutes. They're not going through everything. And they might start you off at a very low level of medication. But it's like, do you have depression? Or like, this is going on in your life. Like, maybe you should fix that first before. But once like the doctor comes in, that's a big barrier when a doctor is like, you have depression. And we're like, well, we're not a doctor, so no one's, you know,
Or they are taking the medication, but then, you know, some people are not following up with the therapeutic aspect of it, you know, whether you're talking to somebody, or they'll talk to one person and they haven't found the right fit. So I think it's, you know, what I tell people is when they're looking for a therapist, you might not find the one that is going to work for you the first time. You know, you might have to try a couple of different people before you get it right, but you shouldn't give up. You know, we were talking earlier, and I was saying how I feel like everyone should have a therapist the way you have a dentist, the way you have a physician. Even if it comes to the point where you're not seeing your therapist weekly, because some people, you don't need it weekly. You've done some work, you know, you've been in therapy maybe a year, 6 months, and you've seen some changes, you've made some changes, but now maybe you need to come every 3 months or every 6 months, but you should have someone that you've developed a relationship with already. So when life does happen, because life is going to happen, challenges are going to come, you already have a relationship with this person, and you can, you know, call them up and say, hey, I need an appointment, you know, I'm getting divorced, or whatever the case may be. That's a life challenge for you. I got diagnosed with something, an illness, you know, a family member passed, whatever it is, you will have that person in your, you know, contacts the way you have everybody else. But, you know, people don't see the value in their mental health. They see value in probably more in fitness, even to hire a trainer, than they would say, oh, you know, they'll pay a trainer a lot of money, but they don't see the value in hiring a therapist, or, you know, they'll get their hair done, their nails done, and they won't say, oh, I need this mental health treatment. So I think the more it's talked about, and the more people are able to recognize that this is an important tool to have in addition to our dentist or our regular medical physician, or any of these other things that we take care of ourselves, you know?
Yeah. All I can say is therapy is great. I had a great time in therapy. I mean, it took me a long time too to get to the therapist. So I also was one of those, got the medication by a family doctor, right? Resisted therapy for years and then finally just committed to doing therapy. And it was like one of the best, most life-changing things ever in the most positive way. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's important to find like, you know, your person and it doesn't, we're very into the traditional sense of therapy weekly, right? Or maybe like bi-weekly. You, depending on finances and your lifestyle and your schedule, you can incorporate, like, I'll do therapy once a month and I'll go to the, you know, I'm going to hire a trainer and do this. Like you want to, you can like mix it up. It doesn't have to be this traditional way of thinking. It's like, it's okay. Like I've had a client was like, you know, I can only do every other week or once every other month because I want to right now focus on losing weight. Fantastic. Like do that. Like that is you've identified what the issue that you really want to focus on. I'm not going to help you lose weight, you know, like go to the trainer and then it's, you know, so it can, you can definitely like customize your treatment.
As long as I feel like if you're it's, you know, building your toolbox in a sense, you're putting all these things in here, you're figuring out what works for you, what's not working for you. You know, like I see somebody once a month that I have, and they're just, you know, kind of adding to their already toolbox. They want to get more into meditating and, you know, just talking about other ways to incorporate the natural things into their therapy, into, you know, their toolbox.
Yeah.
So it's helpful.
Yeah. So one thing that I've run into, so I'm the same way as far as like, I think you should have a pretty nice utility belt, right? You see Batman go out there. Batman's not a superhero. Let's be real. Batman has no super strength. He's got nothing, but he has a bunch of cool gadgets, right? And that's kind of how I always viewed like,
just saying.
That's how I've always kind of viewed like the different, you know, the things in your life. But it seems, especially in males, there is a stigma around therapy. Like it's a bad thing. And I never really looked at it as like a bad thing, but I looked at it as, no, I'm not crazy. Like there's no way I'm crazy. Like I'm good. Like we'll carry on. And as I got older in life, I realized, you know, that's not exactly the best approach. So now I'm a huge advocate for it. But what kind of started it, and like how do we start to fix that? Because it's one of those things where it's you just, I'm not going to therapy. I'm good. I'm good. Whereas like that, and if you think about it, right, you're just a bag of meat, and you know your mind is what's controlling everything. And if the mind is not processing things correctly, nothing else is really going to work.
Yeah. That I will say that I think I'm gonna have to like credit the pandemic for this. I do see a rise in men wanting to discuss mental health, open. We've gotten a lot of like people asking us, like males asking us for services, and people like in high positions and very like macho roles, and like I think the pandemic really has helped people, especially like just this is an issue, you know. But I think like just having a conversation that it's not weakness. It takes a lot more courage to ask for help than not to ask for help, to be vulnerable to another person, to say I'm not doing well. It takes a lot of strength. Like, you know, even women, we don't always do that, you know, asking, especially moms. We want to be power mom off, you know, and reaching out to our village, right? That's hard, right? We don't want to be a bother to people. So I think, again, it's really getting that message across. You asking for help is showing way more strength than you think it is.
I think it's a cultural thing, or how boys are raised from little. Like, don't cry, like toughen up, you know, like a lot of it comes from conditioning, you know, childhood conditioning, and what children are told when they're little, and then it's like generational, you know, like, oh, that men don't go to therapy, you don't need a therapist, only crazy people go to therapy. But you don't have to be crazy, you just have to be experiencing something. So I think the more that's talked about, I think I feel like there's more talk about teaching kids to regulate their emotions. They're learning social emotional learning skills younger now. So I think we'll see a change in that. But I think the resistance has just been back from how people have been raised and told that it's weak, like you shouldn't cry. Don't tell anybody your business. A lot of people are raised like keep the family business in the family house. Like it doesn't go outside this house. And so it's a lot of conditioning. And sometimes you don't even realize that you're still carrying a lot of that conditioning as an adult. It shows up. People say, well, I don't have any trauma, but then they'll start talking about how their parents got divorced and their father wasn't in their life. And well, nothing really bad happened to me, but it doesn't have to be those big traumas or, big T, little T traumas, but it's a form of trauma that impacted you some way. And so I think when people start to understand what that means and how it impacted them, they'll be more, like, oh, okay, maybe I do. It's like a self-awareness thing. A lot of people don't have self-awareness. And so
it's very true.
I think we just solved it. I think we solved the male issue. This is it. We solved it. You're welcome, men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We solved it.
It's funny that you mentioned the pandemic, because during the pandemic, as far as like kind of like sparked it a little bit for people to go out and seek help. Everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of people had a lot of downtime.
Yep.
Some people don't have that many hobbies. They're workaholics. And if you're a workaholic and you don't have any hobbies and there's really nothing going on around you, you're just kind of sitting there. There's a funny quote with, who's it from? Blaise Pascal. And the quote goes, all of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. And when you look at that time period, that was probably some of the most alone a lot of people have ever been in the last years, right? So if you think about our lives, we're constantly given notifications, messages, text messages from a friend, text from a family, text from like, you owe a bill, you got this going on, there's a work email, so everything's just going off around you constantly. So we're just used to conditioned, almost like we're in a hive and the hive is always buzzing and we're getting those notifications. So it's just funny that you brought that up, because that's kind of like how I viewed it as well. So there were a lot of times in the pandemic where I'm sitting there and it's just like, I'm pacing and I'm like, why am I pacing? I'm not nervous or anything like that, but it's just like this heightened like sense.
Yeah. Cause you adapt to that lifestyle. People think like sometimes it gets worse, honestly, after you really start dealing with your problems. And once you start like healing, sometimes it feels really uncomfortable in your body that you start maybe getting like sick and not feeling well. Like I remember for me, when I finished school and everything, like I got the job, I'm like, my schedule was wonderful. I started getting like sick and it just, all these tests, I was fine. Then the doctor was talking to me. I was like, oh, are you still doing all these things? Oh, no. She's like, well, that's your problem. Like my body got used to running on that. That was my baseline. And now I brought that down and I had to figure out how to live in that space that I don't have that many things to do. I don't have to write a paper, go here, go there. It's an adjustment period, and people get really are not okay with that uncomfortableness because it's weird, and it takes a while. It takes a few months like
your nervous system's dysregulated, right? I was having a conversation with somebody that they were like, I feel like something's off, but they changed their whole life. They weren't living in that, like their body wasn't in fight or flight anymore, but once your body is not in that, when you're so used to like the chaos, the trauma, the whatever is going on in your life, and then things are like smooth, they were still like, I don't know, I still feel uncomfortable. It's because your body's so used to that fight or flight that it hasn't recognized that, and that now, oh, I don't need to be in survival mode anymore, because now everything is like calm. So it's again back to that vagus nerve, like your nervous system becomes dysregulated and it still doesn't know how to cope because it's so used to that chaotic and that stress, like that, the deadlines. Oh, I got to get a paper in, I got to do this or whatever, the stress of everything that you're handling. People don't put the two together. And so it's like, okay, I got to get this back in order, and realizing like, because our body shouldn't be in fight or, that mode all the time. But sometimes it gets so used to that it doesn't recognize anything different. Yeah.
And it could be a very lengthy process for someone, especially if they're not trying to like, adapt, or they're still trying to live a certain way. especially like if you leave a relationship and it was like a very toxic relationship, and you know you're happier without the person, you know you're better, you're safer, and you feel uncomfortable. You're like, this is because you've lived in that environment for so long, that even when maybe finding a partner that's not toxic, that is nicer, and it's like, I don't like this.
Or setting boundaries with people becomes uncomfortable, because it's like if you're used to being that yes person, and then you're starting to say no to people, then it's like you feel like a bad person, and you're like, oh, I should have done that, right? But like setting boundaries is gonna feel uncomfortable, because any type of change is gonna feel uncomfortable, and that's when you know that you're healing as well, is when you start recognizing like you did something that was good for you, and it's still feeling uncomfortable. Like that's that whole like transition of like, okay, I'm making the better changes, I know this is good for me logically, but it feels uncomfortable because especially people that have like abandonment issues and things like that, and you need to like leave a situation alone, that childhood wound will come up, and so it's uncomfortable when you're in that healing stage. For sure.
Yeah, healing is uncomfortable, and it sometimes when you leave therapy, you leave feeling really good, and sometimes you leave feeling worse.
Yeah. And also too, like as you're like healing, you're kind of like also changing a little bit as a person too. You might be going, and I'm kind of like speaking a little bit out of turn here, but like you might be going from being more of a victim to now, taking control of your life, right? And like that's a change of identity too. And that change of identity can sometimes be really hard for people to deal with. I think.
Absolutely.
You might even lose people, like, because what's the saying, like the people that have an issue with your boundaries are the people that were benefiting from you not having any. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. You're like, oh, this person really isn't a friend, or this person isn't looking out for it. So sometimes you have to make those changes, and they could be very intertwined to your life. So again, it's an uncomfortable process.
Totally. So a question for everyone here, right? So we're talking about mental health, depression, things like that. How much of this do we think is related to the infinite dopamine loop that our society has created? So dopamine, obviously, for those listening that may or may not be familiar with dopamine, trust me, we all are. Dopamine is like it's a chemical your body releases that makes you feel good. So when something happens that's good, or you view it as good, it feels good, right? So some simple examples that sometimes people don't recognize that, or if you get a text notification, if you get an Instagram notification, if you get a DM, if you slide into someone's DMs, which I've never done, and you get the response, that triggers like that dopamine hit. And now if you think about that, everything is the buzzing of the phone. Now let's say you might have, I'll use myself as an example. I'm a gambler. When I win a bet, it's like we've just discovered America. And then when I lose that next one, like it creates like this hunger, like, oh no, like things are going awful. And like nothing's really changed. I lost a trivial amount of money. That nothing's really changed, but now it feels like the world's ending until I hit that next bet. Almost like addiction. And when you look at, you have the same thing with drugs, and you have the same thing with like relationships, and how you interact with society and gaming and stuff like that. So how much of that do you guys think is like creating the issue? And when you look at exercise, a lot of people say, exercise therapy, it's my therapy, it's my mental space, but that can also create the impact that like an addiction has, where you almost take it too far and it's too much. And obviously, as we know, if you stress, like exercise is stress, period. That's how your body's going to process it. If you do it too much and you're already stressed out, you're just going to compound the problem and create more. So when you look at it, it's very important to touch on, like, are we creating this almost mental health kind of crisis that's going on? And like to speak on that a little bit.
I think society has done that to us, because we love like the instant gratification, right? Absolutely. If I text you, I know you have your phone on you. Like, text me back. It's all of us do that, and we're like, oh, I'll check my phone later. No, we're always on our phones, right? But it is definitely part of the issue when it comes to like working out too. Like, it can become a problem, right? That could be like part of an eating disorder. That can be someone being even more stressed out going to the gym. Like if they're not seeing the result, or like if it's very low self-esteem. I'm sure you guys I'm sure you've had clients that maybe aren't getting the results as quickly as they feel they should. And that puts you even in a more negative space. Like, oh, I'm doing all this work for nothing. I'm never going to lose this weight. I'm just, so that kind of brings you down. So it's also having to work on yourself and your self-esteem, being happy and content right now. Like, maybe, no, this isn't what I want to look like. I want to do this, but being happy with the process, being content along the way. Because, with myself, going back, I had like a goal. I'm going to do this. I did not enjoy the process at all. I'm going to get that goal. I'm going to do it. Tunnel vision. I did it. And then I'm just like, now what? What I do? and that like rattled me because I was really unhappy. I was like, I don't know what else to do. I did it all, but I didn't enjoy it. So I think, fitness can become also a big issue, especially if you're working with someone or seeing someone at the gym and they're getting more results than you are. And it's like, well, now I need to cut this out. I need to never eat this again.
Well, social media, I think, plays a role too. Like, people are constantly comparing themselves to people that they see online. So, and everybody's body is different. Everybody's metabolism is different. So your, skinny might not be somebody else's skinny because of your body type and genetics. And so I think people need to like actively clean up their timeline sometime, because if you find yourself in that cycle of like, oh, I'm following all these models and I'm following, these surgery pages and their body looks like this, and how can my body, so you get caught up, and which can also create like a mental health and an obsession of like constantly comparing. And a lot of people's pages are, people forget, people filter them and they edit them, and so you're comparing yourself to unrealistic expectations a lot of the times, but it can create some mental despair, so it's good for people to if you find yourself getting caught up in that cycle, go through your page, like unfollow these pages that are not contributing to your well-being, and find yourself criticizing yourself. So I think social media definitely plays a part in how people are thinking about their bodies, their, what they should be doing in life in general. Like, oh, this one's on a boat every day, but that's not their everyday life. It's like people are curating their pages to show you what they want to show you. So I think once people get that straight, like you'll start to be like, okay, let me, realize that this is not reality.
Yeah. And for our field, something me and Kyanna talk about all the time is, and I'm sure it's probably very similar to you guys. There are people that they're certified. And there's so many ways to get certifications, to go on the internet, pay a few bucks, and print out a certificate, and now you're certified. And we bump into people giving false information, detrimental information, but they're certified.
Yes.
And I actually shared this with Anthony one time. I was told not to eat bananas, right? And I'm like, I can't eat bananas. And he's like, why can't you eat bananas?
Yeah.
Like, oh, don't burn my
The Zen garden is burning.
And so Anthony's like, eat the banana. And I have, for years, was like, I'm not supposed to eat bananas, Anthony. And he's like, stop, eat the damn banana. Right? And then he went on his, like, this is why you eat your banana, right? But I'm like, well, that girl looks like that. Like,
Totally.
So
yeah. I mean, I feel like half my job is like just debunking things that people see on social media.
Yep.
Yeah. And as a trainer, so I've worked in many gyms. I have many training friends. About 90% of everything you see on social media is bullshit. There's like people
except our page.
Except your page. Right. So all those gym Insta, pages where they have this workout does this workout does that. It's always, a lot of it is bullshit, right? It's clickbaity. That's not the way to train. You don't have to jump around. You don't have to balance and all these things. It's wild to see. And unfortunately, like there's not like a filter system as far as like, does this actually work? Does that actually work? I mean, at the end of the day, if you know anything about exercise and movement, you could literally do anything to lose weight as long as your diet is good. Right. So if you're eating good foods, you can hop around like a bunny rabbit. You're going to be really disproportionate looking.
We can't eat bananas. Some movement. I feel like
you can eat bananas.
some movement. People need to. There's so many like, especially now, it's a lot of people is like working from home and you're not moving all day. Like you're not moving your body. It's like
stretching. You know,
all of that stuff is important, and it doesn't have to be huge things. But a lot of people make you feel like you have to be doing so many things in order to see the small changes or the big changes or whatever it is that you want to do. But it's social media is the cause of a lot of people's you know, like it's interesting.
One thing too that social media portrays, especially in like the fitness world and stuff like that, if you let's take for a male perspective here, and you mentioned the self-esteem thing earlier. Let's say you're a child, you're growing up, you're playing little league, and you know, you play baseball, your team comes in 8th place and you're celebrated and you get a trophy for coming in 8th place. You're told you're fucking wonderful. You're the bee's knees. You go through life like that. Every single thing that you do, as trivial or nominal as it might be, you get an award for it. Even if you weren't the top, you get an award for 8th place, 7th place, 5th place. You just get an award for showing up, for writing your name on the paper. Looking back, there's so many instances in our lives, especially mine, like where that was the case, and I was rewarded for things that like I didn't really do anything. I was just there, but like, like, you know what I mean? And like, and so that's your existence growing up, and then you have this goal or target, and then you graduate from high school and you enter the real world, and then life just uppercuts you, and like if it's like it turns into Ricky Bobby real fast. So like if you ain't first, you're last. That's pretty much how it goes. And then, so that can create a little bit of like that depressive state a little bit. And you're like, oh, you're kind of figuring things out. And then you go ahead and maybe you get out of shape. And now when you look at self-esteem is going to, because of our society and how it works and like social media that we were talking about, is very correlated to your physical appearance. Now, what we see a lot of times is guys trying to get in shape to pick up girls because they think it'll improve their chances. Now, no one wants to be with a slob. But you have that same experience where I was just talking about, like the same person goes, they become overweight. Now they're going back in the gym, they get in shape, and now they're going out like socially and they're trying to pick up dates, pick up girls and stuff like that. And they realize very quickly that for most women, that really doesn't mean that all that much to them. And they're hit with like yet another example. I think, how much of that do you think like are people dealing with, like, especially now? And you look at, you know, oh, you have to have a 6-pack and you have to look like, Michael B. Jordan from as he's played in Creed. If you don't look like that, you can't get any girls. Well, now I suck, and now I'm depressed because I'm never going to look like that guy. You know what I mean?
I get him. I'm gonna go back to crediting the pandemic here. I think that there is a little bit of a decline on that. I think, especially with like men getting more into like their just having mental awareness and stuff, understanding that, especially if you're interested in women. There's a lot other things that women are looking at for a man, not just having like a 6-pack, you know. But I feel like, just, I don't know if you agree, like I feel like men are kind of understanding that there's a little bit more to it than just the physical body. And I think it's because there's a lot of conversation around mental health, about emotions, about communication. Now I'm thinking there's like a decline. I'm not saying it's a fast decline, but I feel like there is hope. Like there is I'm hopeful.
There's also more of like a body positive movement happening too.
Yes, correct.
And I also think that translates over to men, not only to women.
Correct.
I think.
No, there is. Like, I know they just came out, I think this week, with a Barbie that has Down syndrome. You know?
No way.
Yeah. I think
that's so cool.
So
that's actually awesome.
Yeah, so it's things like that. We do live also like the younger generation. I'm very young. It's my generation. They will petition and picket and march if they're inconvenienced at all. You know, so that's like it's nice in some things, and sometimes like, oh my god, again. But
definitely a double-edged sword there.
Yeah,
like, for sure.
There's been things by, what are they? Generation Z? Are we Z? Am I Z?
I don't know.
I'm
I get confused nowadays.
We are millennials.
Okay,
Thanks,
so the
Anthony.
Z, the Z, Gen Z. I feel like they're definitely like they're not taking it. They don't like it. And I think they've shown us like
more advocating.
Yeah, like you don't if you're unhappy, especially like for a job, for example, if you're unhappy, you don't have to stay there. Like you know, it's like so. I feel like there's also like Anthony said, double-edged sword there. So I feel like where the body positivity is definitely more being marketed more and just being spoken about, and I think that there's certain celebrities being called out a little bit more on their editing and their filters, and you know there's particular very famous family that likes to post their workouts.
Call baby girl out.
and like I don't know anything about, like I'm not at all like a trainer or anything like I just have a Peloton, so I am a Peloton instructor, but it's like you know I'm like I don't think that's how you do that workout, you know. And
well, the thing about that is that a lot of people have had, you know, they get surgery and then they start working out, which is fine, but they, you know, a lot of people present it as, oh, I got this body from just working out, when there was other stuff that happened before that, which, you know, also creates other things that people get caught up in, like, oh my God, I gotta look like this, when no, this person did this first and then now they're working out to maintain that. But I think that's another issue that people start to have, you know, mental health about body issues and things like that.
Yeah, I feel like if you know about like biology, like if you do understand how the body works, we are people like, again, like there's certain celebrities, like you work out a lot and you've lost a lot of weight. These particular body parts have not moved. Like you can be naturally gifted, you have a big butt, you will lose weight at your butt. Yeah. Like, you know, so that's, you know, knowing that information.
Careful with biology. Apparently, Gen Z is rewriting that textbook as well.
That's a good podcast, Anthony.
The funny that we mentioned, it's funny that you bring up that famous family, right? So we're referring to the Kardashians.
I don't know. Are we?
We definitely are. And by all means.
Flagged.
Hey, I have nothing against anything that people do except this. I don't know how I came across this information, but I was reading and I was researching, I was looking at stuff, and I went down a rabbit hole and I came across some information. In the last like I think it's 1 to 2 years, there have been 1.3 million men specifically that have gotten BBLs.
Really?
And I'm like, this can't be a thing. Like, if any of my guy friends, and I'm a very nice person, I'm very mellow, like we're chill for the most part. Here's my view on the rest of humanity. You can do whatever the fuck you want as long as you don't inconvenience me. That's not saying that I deserve special treatments, but don't do something stupid and then like mess up my day. Like today, I went to the dentist. This should have taken 20 minutes. And then I had to raw dog this dental instrument with no Novocaine to fix the procedure. The teeth came out great. I highly recommend my dentist. He's great. However, it just took a long time, right? But I'm telling you, if you were one of my friends, my male friends, and you get a BBL, we're gonna have a conversation, and like it might become like a physical altercation. Like we might have to enter combat about this. Like I cannot.
They might want a BBL. They might.
I can't fathom like
problem area.
Yeah, but how do we get there? I never thought of that before I saw that stat.
Now that you're saying,
seen them?
I have not seen that. I'm gonna have to go like
Oscar De La Hoya has a fake 6-pack.
No, it's not fake. It's 50-50.
He said it in an interview.
Yeah, he had a guy go in and take the fat out between the abs because he couldn't get it back to how it was when he was a pro boxer.
Wow,
it's so crazy that you can do that nowadays.
Yeah, but he's honest. But he's honest
I'm
about it.
happy he said it though. Like for example, because we can talk crap, but he was in it. I forgot what was it. Charlemagne? I don't know. It was an interview that he was asked, and he didn't say no. He didn't lie. Yeah. So that's the issue also. Like with a lot of other celebrities when they're asked, I have done nothing, and you're like, really? Now, like maybe like I feel like a lot of us know that's not reality, but that's not everybody. There are a lot of people that are easily influenced that do think that that's how, doing the Stairmaster will get you a Kardashian butt. Like, you're gonna get it. Like, that's it. You're gonna go on the Stairmaster for an hour a day, and you're gonna come out and you will have this butt.
I wish that's how it worked. I've been on the Stairmaster for many hours.
You're using the wrong Stairmaster. Sam.
Yeah, clearly. I should have used the machine next to it.
Right.
All right. So here's a question for you guys, right? So let's say I'm someone, I feel like maybe I'm struggling, but I'm not open to sharing with anyone. None of my friends know, my family doesn't know, anything like that. Like, if we were to take like somewhere between 3 and 5 baby steps, as far as, and let's say if we look at a stage, this person is maybe thinking about therapy, but they're not quite ready. Like, how does that journey start? Like, are there steps that you can do like on your own that kind of help? I know for some people they've had good luck with journaling and things like that. I personally love to journal, but like, what are some baby steps that you can implement to maybe open yourself up more to be ready to have that conversation with a professional or someone close to you?
If I have someone that is on that, like, they don't know, first I'll be like, really a self-reflection. Why do you think why are you thinking about this? Like, what is it that triggered this? What encouraged you to even think about it? And journaling is a great one, and not so much that you have to like dear diary it. I think it's good for kind of keeping track of your feelings,
tracking of your mood.
Just seeing like a pattern. Because again, it could be that maybe every Sunday you have family dinner, then you have a shitty Monday and Tuesday, and then if you kind of keep track, you're like, oh, this starts after Sunday family dinner. Maybe I need to limit going to family dinners. So really a lot of self-reflection on what that is. And one of the things I tell my clients or people that are seeking, you're not hurting a therapist's feeling by meeting with them and saying, I don't want to sign on. There are so many people on wait lists. We're not hurting. Like, there's not enough therapists. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to waste your time and the therapist's time and the coach's time, you need to click with the person. You might not like my style. It's not everyone's style. You might not like Kyanna's style. That's not for everyone. But we also need to click with our client too. So if you're gonna come to therapy or like a coaching session and not be open, not be vulnerable, it might take a little bit to get there. But if you're not willing to even think about it, you have to. It's a relationship. You have to kind of shop around a little bit.
Yeah.
Ask questions.
I was gonna say.
Yeah,
that.
Like what's important. What do you need from a therapist, right? There's some people, for example, like a veteran, they might want a therapist or a coach that has experience working with veterans, or that maybe has their own experience in the military. There's plenty of that as well. Like, you can find that, like, if you're going through substance abuse, do you have experience with substance abuse? Not everyone does. Are you comfortable having that conversation? So I think people feel better when they know that, oh, I can ask questions too. Like, in an intake, you ask questions. What's important to you? Like, and write them down, come with the questions. And what do you need?
Yeah, I think just realizing too that you don't have to go with the first person that you meet. Maybe, you ask friends like, hey, do you know anybody in the field? Do you know anybody that's doing this? Get referrals from people that know people, and don't be afraid to ask, the therapist or social worker, whoever, it is that you're seeing, what their background is, what is their education? How long have they been doing this? I think even when parents are looking for someone for their children, I think it's important to, inquire about like how long you've worked with children, or, specific to teenagers. A lot of therapists don't want to work with teenagers or small children. So it's just getting all of the background information and knowing that you can ask questions. And I feel like you need to, talk to people, because most of the time when you get a therapist, a lot of times it will come from someone, or a social worker, whoever it is that you're seeing, a life coach, wellness coach, whatever it is. you can ask other people, and most people will be willing to give you some referrals. I think it's all about just opening up the discussion. And I think if you're thinking about it, you probably need to talk to somebody, and most people will be willing to do a consultation call, or like we do clarity calls, you can meet us and just kind of ask the questions, get the see the vibe and see how you feel about it, and then make we don't pressure anybody, and I'm sure most people don't pressure anybody.
That's a great part right now about the field. Like, you're not hurting you don't feel bad. And like you mentioned, Sandra, you had a great experience with previously in therapy. So if like your friend is interested, and you're like, this is what I went through, this is what I like, this is what worked for me, like having those conversations. And even like, so we do our clarity calls together. There's been times someone comes and like, oh, I need therapy, and then they hear Kyanna speak and they're like, oh, I actually like that. I'm like, she's right there. Like, you're not hurting my feelings. You need that. Like, don't, I'm not going to do that. That's what you need. And then someone like, oh, I think I want the meditation. Like, oh, but I do have that trauma. So I'm like, okay. So like you have options. And again, there's so many agencies out there across the country. People want to do telehealth. So people want to do in-person. Do like walk and talk therapy. You can go out and meet somewhere. If you want to incorporate working out, like going like on a hike together, so there's just so many options.
Yeah, I love that. I love that there's so many different options out there. I think it's really helpful.
It's an interesting one. A team workout with a therapist.
Yeah.
Just punishment.
Well, so won't get into anything specific in a group setting, but that's great. Like talking about like communication skills, coping skills in a group setting.
Yeah, or just stress reduction. A group setting where maybe you're, people sometimes need to try out workshops. Like like if you're not ready to dive into full one-on-one, maybe you start going to a meditation class or a yoga class or a journaling workshop that incorporates maybe they have a journal prop at the beginning, someone, everybody's kind of introducing themselves, and just to kind of get the experience, like, oh, do I like being in community? And maybe I'm going to meet some people here, and maybe I want to explore this a little more. So I think there's so many options to kind of get introduced to which way you think is best for you to go. And then some people have a bad experience with therapists, and then they feel like, oh, I never want to go back to therapy, it didn't work for me. And I always, when I hear that from people, I always encourage people to try it again, try someone else, try until you can't find the person, you find the person that's right for you.
Like I had a session I had a client that had really bad depression, and I was really holding in with this client, like, you need to get out. Like, you need to sit outside, get some sun, go for a walk. You have a dog, minimum 20 minutes. I was like, part of the goal. I need you to go outside for a minimum of 20 minutes. And they love ceramic painting. So I was like, bring them out. I'll paint with you. I'm going to show you. I'll do it too. Like,
Aww.
So there are options out there. And you might not like any of that, and you want a regular traditional sit down talk therapy. There's that as well.
I just want to give my perspective really quick on what's happening right now. I'm staring at a computer screen. About an hour ago, we started this podcast with Kyanna and Neycha here, and their background was a wall that seemed to be painted white, and there was a candle. 1 hour later, I would assume the sunlight has started to dwindle where you are. So now it looks like you guys are on a beach, and there's like the sun is slowly settling.
We're manifesting that. We're manifesting the beach right now. This is like we're winding down.
I need to see this more often. Sandra, I need you to install some kind of sunlight device.
I'll work on it just for you.
I know, it's very pretty.
So
I want their background.
So this has been fun. This has been informative. We'll probably have them on again, hopefully in the near future. One of the things that I hope people take away from this. So when we started this podcast, we prided ourselves on creating some form of content that anyone can take anything from. There's a lot of bullshit out there. We try to put something that's very simple, easy. There's nothing clickbaity. There's no paywalls, anything like that. Too many people are struggling with mental health right now. There's too much chaos in the world. There's too much random negativity. They're like, everyone needs someone to talk to. Everyone needs some of these tools that we've been talking about in this last hour. So my hope, if anything, other than my great jokes, is that you take the opportunity to at least meet with a therapist, meet with someone who you can talk to, seek out information if you know someone who's had a good experience, like they were saying, and start there, right? So start inside the mind, right? Which is obviously is going to control the rest, because there's so many things that we see, you know, clients that come to me, I'm sure everyone else has as well, where like, there's just so these simple little things that if you could just process, you know, XYZ a little bit better, your life is going to start to improve. And so my hope, like, this has been fun, and I hope that's been the takeaway for folks.
Yes.
Nice conclusion.
I agree. Yes. Mental health is health. Physical health is health. It's the body. It's one body, and all of it.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
Yeah.